Welcome, Vicoding University, training humans to train themselves. And again, we're getting this idea of training because of basically we're creatures of habits, triggers and responses. And one of the things that happens is, we get triggered and our response isn't just a quick response. There's a whole series of events and sort of we almost get taken away. Then we go for a while, and then all of a sudden another something else triggers us, and we get taken someplace else. And then again, these responses are sort of bigger or more complex. You might have you get up in the morning, the trigger of getting ready for work. You get ready for work, then you trigger and you're driving. How do you drive to work? And then when you get to work, you might how do you go into work, and how do you set up, and then trigger when the first customer comes or whatever it is. The point is that these triggers, one leads to the next, and usually the environment is already there for the next trigger that you're ready for, and your body's always sort of looking for these triggers. Okay, and what we want to learn to do is to say, we might be able to respond better with different triggers or in a different way or whatever. But the challenge is sometimes we don't know what to do. Uh, I mean, let me. I mean, we aren't really good at. There's the whole concept is as we go into our this we first go into our imagination, and like kids we play around with and go, well, I should, like somebody says, I really shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have been mean like that. Okay, so what should have you been like? What should have you done? And you go into your mind, you go, I don't know. I'll give you a real specific example. I was tired one day, and I really needed a cup of coffee, and my wife said, you shouldn't drink coffee. And I, of course, snapped back, yes, it wasn't very nice. And she, didn't work out good. Then I asked her, what should have I done? And she says, well, and we have a great son because my wife of course has corrected him a lot, and he's learned to laugh at her and play with her and stuff like that. So she gave me about three other things that I could do it that I could possibly do to respond in a way that would be more appropriate than to snap back at her. And to start with, I was like, well, what was I supposed to do? I had tons of excuses, of course, going that why couldn't I act the way I normally act, and of course that was the wrong way to act. It didn't work out at all. But a lot of times we don't have good models, and one of the things is we haven't done the research or whatever. Um, I take you back. Do you remember when I was like a little kid? My dad, we'd be watching the football game with the Baltimore Colts and Johnny Unitas and and Raymond Berry and everybody, and you know we'd watch it. There they were doing this, doing this, and then we'd go out in the grass outside in the yard next to us, and we would do the same thing. And I had a great model. This is exactly what you do. And I would jump for the ball at the sideline and catch it and put my feet down before I stepped out of bounds because I had a great model in what to do. My imagination was already there, and I was seeing myself doing it. So it's like level 2 is you go in there and you see yourself doing. Level 3 is when you start to do it and practice it. And getting to level 3 is where you want to get, because then level 4 and 5 is practicing it enough so it becomes just what you do. And number 5, so you can do it when you're tired, exhausted, or woken up in the middle of the night. That's who you do. I mean, you wouldn't do anything different. Stress doesn't matter. It's just who you are. So one of the things we got to remember that we might not be good yet at developing these. I mean, level 2 is level 2, the very beginning, right? We're going to start training ourselves. We got to start getting better at coming up with visualizations. I mean, Alan Carr was a smoker, and he knew exactly what the situation was, but he still had to do the work to go in there and say, well, what are you going to do instead? And how are you going to think instead? And it isn't just a whenever we talk about facts and knowledge, it isn't just you do this and you do that. It's like when I taught ESL, I was trying to get rid of the accent, and one of the things I'd have the students do is copy me. So, you say the same word in different ways. For instance, like we could say, oh, hi, and so somebody's glad to see you. Or you say, oh, hi, and they sort of look away, and the voice trails and stuff like that. And you can tell that, oh, they're just doing their thing. Or they go, oh, hi, there's different ways to say it, and this sort of there's feeling, there's responses, there's a lot more to it than just the word. So it's just like with these uh, ways of seeing stuff. Sometimes you have to go into the situation and, like the kids do, and practice and pretend. So remember, as we start to work on level 2 of where we start to visualize a new response to a trigger, it initially it's going to be sort of, you might not be very good at it, but as you start to practice and get better and understand the details and some of the feelings that you gotta get the feeling going on, and things of that nature, you get better and better. So remember, trigger and response. But one of the things that when we talk about that, that first step of just level 2, getting into the visualization of it and playing around with it like kids, we may not be very good at it. We may have to practice it a little and work on it a little bit more. Or may have to figure out how to get a good model for it. Anyway, that's so trigger and response, Vibe Coding University, training humans to train themselves. All right, see you in a little bit.